Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on a truly captivating journey, one that might just challenge everything you thought you knew about, well, powerful beings. We've received some extraordinary source material that plunges us deep into the concept of giants, not just as figures of ancient myth, bedtime stories, but as tangible entities with a profound, lasting impact. An impact stretching from biblical antiquity right up to the present day, believe it or not.
That's absolutely right. And our mission for this deep dive, it's really about synthesis. We're aiming to meticulously weave together a rich tapestry of biblical narratives, explore some really compelling mythological connections, and even consider a contemporary perspective, one from what our source material calls a brotherhood.
A brotherhood, okay. Intriguing.
It is. So we'll be examining the textual evidence with, let's say, academic rigor, really delving into the how and why these beings might have come to be, and ultimately exploring the enduring implications of their existence, if the sources are to be believed. It's a comprehensive exploration, almost like building a complex argument piece by piece.
Exactly, like peeling back layers of intrigue, but presenting it all for you. So if you're ready to unravel the origins, trace the evolution, and maybe even glimpse the modern-day manifestations of these giants, you are definitely in for a treat. This isn't just a historical deep dive. It's an investigation into, genetics, purpose, and what happens when different worlds, or perhaps even different planes of existence, collide. Okay, let's unpack this. All right, so our source material kicks things off by pointing us straight to a really pivotal verse, Genesis chapter 6, verse 4.
The classic one.
Right. It recounts that in ancient times, there were giants on the earth, and also afterward when the sons of God had children with the daughters of men who bore them children. And then it adds, these were mighty men of renown in antiquity. What strikes me immediately, and the source points this out too, is how explicit it is. Right from the start, it lays out this profound foundation.
It really does. It's the cornerstone, isn't it? And the source is quite specific here. It clarifies that the term giants is a direct translation of the Hebrew word Nephilim.
Nephilim, right.
And it unequivocally refers to people of, truly gigantic stature. This is crucial because it establishes this isn't just, flowery language or metaphor.
Not just big personality.
Exactly, not giants of industry. It's describing physically immense individuals. When the Bible uses that term, it seems to be referring to beings whose sheer physical size would have been, intimidating, awe-inspiring, or terrifying, depending on your perspective.
Okay.
But what's even more fascinating, and our source really emphasizes this, is that this isn't some isolated biblical quirk. No, the presence of such beings is apparently assumed in, and I quote, practically all cultures studied.
Wow. Okay, that's a big claim. Like what?
Well, think about it. You've got the Cyclops in Greek mythology, right? The Jotun in Norse sagas. Then there are various giant legends in indigenous American cultures, African folklore, Asian traditions. The narratives might differ in the details, but they consistently describe these powerful, often dangerous, non-human, or perhaps part-human entities existing alongside humanity.
So it's a recurring theme across the globe.
Precisely. This widespread resonance suggests, what does it suggest? A shared ancient memory. A universal archetype, or maybe, just maybe, an ancient reality that somehow transcended geographical and cultural boundaries.
That's the aha moment the source mentions, isn't it?
I think
connecting these old texts to something potentially tangible, something acknowledged across different societies.
Exactly. It lends a different kind of weight to the biblical account when you see these echoes everywhere. It moves it from just a single religious text into a potentially broader human experience or memory.
Okay, so here's where it gets really compelling for me. The sources don't just stay within the Bible. They bring in these striking parallels from Greek mythology. It notes that, quote, the giants were demigods, and the demigods were children of the gods with human women. It highlights the direct, powerful similarity. It feels like these ancient myths are almost mirroring each other.
It absolutely does broaden the perspective, doesn't it? That cross-cultural resonance you mentioned is profoundly significant.
Yeah.
Our source draws a very direct, very compelling line between the biblical story in Genesis and the, frankly, very well-known concept of demigods in Greek myth.
Like Hercules, Perseus.
Exactly. Figures like Hercules, Perseus, Achilles, all famous examples. Children born from the union of a god, or goddess in some cases, and a mortal woman. And what defined them? Extraordinary abilities, often superhuman strength or incredible cunning or near invulnerability. They were central figures in their cultural narratives.
So the idea itself wasn't unique to the Hebrews.
Not at all. This suggests the concept of divine human unions isn't some isolated biblical idea. It appears to be a profound, maybe even universal archetype. It hints at, perhaps, a shared, deep-seated human memory or understanding, maybe even reflecting some kind of ancient reality that cultures everywhere grappled with.
So let's go back to Genesis. Who exactly were these sons of God? The source gives a very direct and honestly quite unsettling interpretation.
It does, and this is where our source material makes a really critical interpretive leap. It doesn't pull any punches. It asserts, and I'm quoting again, the Bible says that children were born from the relationships between fallen angels and human women. Let us conveniently name these sons of God. They are demons.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Demons, not just generic divine being.
No, it's a very specific, very direct identification. It frames the sons of God not as ambiguous celestial figures, but as malevolent spiritual entities, fallen angels, demons who engaged in these illicit unions.
That changes everything about the lineage, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, it connects the Nephilim directly to a spiritual rebellion, maybe even an intentional act to corrupt the human line. It adds a layer of, well, spiritual warfare to the whole thing.
And the source speculates about how this happened. It mentions fertility rites.
Yes, it speculates on the context. Could these ancient rituals, these, sacred ceremonies or perhaps cultic practices, could they have been the setting, the stage where these highly unusual transgressive interactions took place?
So not just random encounters.
The text emphasizes that point. These probably weren't happening in the middle of the street, as it puts it. It suggests perhaps deliberate acts, maybe orchestrated within specific ritual contexts, whether sanctioned or unsanctioned by the wider society.
Making them more calculated, like a deliberate interference.
That's the implication, a calculated act of spiritual and biological interference, not just a series of random flings between realms.
So if these unions were happening, these demon-human unions, according to the source, what kind of children resulted? The source suggests a definite genetic alteration. It uses Hercules as a comparison. Again, people of extreme strength, capable of performing things that ordinary human beings could not. That's quite a transformation. What are we talking about genetically?
It's a huge question, isn't it? What were the actual characteristics? The source is explicit. They were valiant, men of renown, possessing extreme strength, yes, but also capabilities far beyond ordinary humans. The Hercules comparison, while the source calls it ludica or playful, is apt. It conveys their extraordinary nature, and it implies a significant, perhaps even targeted, genetic modification.
So it wasn't just being stronger, it was deeper.
Our source posits genetic alteration as the specific mechanism, a fundamental change at a biological level. You could imagine maybe a rapid acceleration of growth hormones, yes, leading to immense size, but maybe also greatly increased muscle fiber density, or enhanced senses, or even an accelerated healing factor.
Wow.
It implies a level of biological manipulation that seems, well, advanced for ancient times, suggesting perhaps an external, non-human intelligence directing it, a deliberate engineering process.
And the terms valiant and men of renown, what did that mean back then?
In ancient contexts, those terms point to individuals who were celebrated, maybe revered, but also often feared. They were known for superhuman feats, prowess in battle, maybe constructing monumental things ordinary people couldn't. Their fame would have been widespread, their legends passed down.
Right, they'd stand out.
Absolutely. Think about the societal impact. Their very existence would have undeniably shaped human history, warfare, culture, everything. They could have been natural leaders, formidable warriors, maybe even the founders of powerful dynasties or cities.
Their size alone would change things.
Completely. Their physical power would dictate the scale of construction, the nature of warfare. Imagine single combat champions deciding the fate of armies. Even the architecture of their dwellings would likely be different. They would leave an indelible mark, making them truly legendary figures.
Okay, so from these foundational ideas, these cross-cultural parallels in Genesis, our source then propels us forward in the biblical timeline. It shows this wasn't just some vague ancient memory. These beings apparently continued to directly impact the Israelites.
Yes, it moves from the origin story into historical narrative.
It takes us to the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verses 32 and 33. This is the famous story of the spies sent into Canaan. Their report back. It's chilling.
It really is.
They describe a land that devours its inhabitants, which sounds bad enough, and a people of great stature, including actual giants. That report must have painted a vivid, terrifying picture for the Israelites waiting back in the camp. Pure dread.
Absolutely, and this passage is crucial. It provides compelling evidence for the ongoing presence of giants long after Genesis 6. It embeds them firmly in the historical experience of Israel. That phrase, a land that devours its inhabitants, it dramatically illustrates a region of constant violent struggles. The source suggests battles were so fierce, mortality so high, the land itself seemed to consume people. A harsh, dangerous place before you even factor in the giants.
But the giants were the main event in that report, right?
They certainly steal the show. The spies say the entire populace is of great stature, and there were also giants there. Notice the distinction.
Yeah. So not everyone was a giant, but there were generally tall people and these specific giants among them.
That's what it suggests. Perhaps different generations, like we discussed. Maybe the generally tall populace were descendants, while the giants were closer to the original Nephilim lineage. First-generation manifestations, perhaps.
And the spy's reaction, the famous grasshoppers line.
And we were in our own eyes like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. It's incredibly evocative. It conveys not just physical disparity, but a deep psychological impact. A sense of utter insignificance, hopelessness, paralyzing fear.
And that fear had consequences.
Huge consequences. That report, that overwhelming fear, led directly to the Israelites' refusal to enter the land and resulted in their 40 years of wandering in the desert. It underscores the sheer terror these beings inspired.
The source also mentions the geography, Jericho.
Right, the strategic importance of the area around Jericho, a key nexus of trade routes. Heavily fortified, likely contributed to the constant conflict. It was valuable land, fiercely contested.
And the spies basically said, mission impossible.
Pretty much. And our source highlights that this impossible mission conclusion really underscores the need for divine intervention in the Israelite narrative. Human strength alone looked utterly insufficient against such adversaries and their, well, seemingly impregnable fortifications.
So clearly, these weren't just isolated figures if they dominated entire regions. Our source then dives into some basic genetics, trying to explain how they might have reproduced and spread.
Yeah, it proposes a kind of model based on what it calls minimum knowledge of genetics.
It lays out a formula. Demon, son of God, plus human woman equals giant, the first generation.
Right. The Nephilim proper.
But then it suggests a continuation. Giant plus human woman, being of great stature. Someone still big, but maybe not quite as enormous as the original.
Exactly. A kind of genetic dilution.
Which would explain how you could have both men of great stature and true giants in the land, like the spies reported.
That's the argument. This genetic model becomes really important for understanding how these traits could perpetuate, but also potentially dilute over time. It posits this clear generational decline in sheer size, while still maintaining impressive great stature.
So the lineage could spread without constant demon-human interaction.
Precisely. The first union creates the pure giant. Subsequent unions with human women produce offspring still notably taller and stronger than average, but perhaps lacking that extreme first-generation gigantism. This allows the traits to spread through a broader population.
The societal implications of that.
Yeah.
Having a whole population of big guys and then some actual giants mixed in.
It's staggering to think about. Their presence would dictate architecture. The source specifically mentions city walls, the impregnable fortress. These wouldn't be standard walls, they'd be monumental fortifications, maybe built by or for beings of immense size and strength. Imagine the engineering required.
Yeah.
This created an extraordinary strategic challenge for ordinary people trying to conquer such lands. It wasn't just fighting big individuals, it was facing an entrenched, powerful civilization whose very environment was built to their scale.
And the source asks how the Israelites' understanding of these lines, giants versus great stature, affected them.
Right.
Did their cultural memory, their understanding of these distinct generations, inform their specific fears and strategies? Knowing whether you were facing a first-gen Nephilim versus a third-gen man of great stature might have been crucial for assessing the threat.
Okay, so the Bible doesn't just talk about them generally. Our source points to Deuteronomy chapter 9, verses 1 and 2. Moses is speaking, and he directly names a specific group, the sons of Anak.
The Anakim, yes.
He calls them a great and tall people, and apparently everyone knew about them. He asked rhetorically, who can resist the sons of Anak? This suggests a specific recognized lineage feared throughout the region.
That direct identification is striking, isn't it? The Anakim, or sons of Anak, are explicitly called out as descendants of the giants, the Nephilim. Not just by Moses, but implying this was common knowledge among surrounding cultures too.
So it wasn't just a vague fear of big people. It was this family, this lineage. Exactly. A lineage known specifically for its immense size and strength, a reputation that clearly preceded them. Moses' words are pretty stark. You are crossing the Jordan today to go in and dispossess nations larger and stronger than you, cities great and fortified up to heaven.
Fortified up to heaven.
A people great and tall, the sons of Anak, whom you know and of whom you have heard it said, who can stand before the sons of Anak. That description, it's not just about individuals, it's about entire fortified societies linked to this lineage. The imagery suggests monumental construction, overwhelming dominance.
These weren't easily conquered towns.
Not at all. Monumental bastions, likely designed for and perhaps by these powerful beings. And the phrase, whom you know and of whom you have heard it said, it underscores just how widespread their reputation was. They were an established, recognized power, a common topic of discussion, and likely dread.
Deuteronomy 1.28 mentions them again too, right?
It does, yes, reinforcing their deep-seated presence and the lasting impression they made. Facing the Anakim would have been a profound test of Israelite faith. Could their God truly overcome such seemingly invincible earthly power? It was a clash of scales, literally.
And for something really tangible, really concrete, our source points to Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 11, the bed of Og, king of Bashan.
Ah, yes, Og's bed, a famous detail.
Famous because it was enormous.
Yeah.
Described as 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Now, what's that in modern terms?
Okay, 9 cubits by 4 cubits. That translates to approximately 2.7 meters long and about 1.0 meter wide.
So almost 9 feet long and over 3 feet wide.
Exactly. To put that in perspective, a standard modern king-size bed is about 2 meters or 6 foot 6 inches long. Og's bed was significantly longer.
Even if it was a sarcophagus, as some suggest.
Even then, the source points out, its dimensions are wildly disproportionate, far exceeding typical sarcophagi of that era. You'd only need a sarcophagus that big for an exceptionally large individual.
It was made of iron or a basalt.
The text mentions iron. Some translations suggest basalt. Either way, it indicates immense durability needed to support such a large being, perhaps, and potentially advanced craftsmanship for the time.
It really grounds the discussion, doesn't it? Moves it from myth towards something potentially historical or archaeological.
It does. It provides this incredibly concrete detail. And Og himself is explicitly described as one of the Rephaim, another recognized lineage of giants. It connects the dots.
And it makes you wonder about the practicalities, doesn't it? How did they live? What were their houses like? Their tools?
Exactly. It suggests a truly different scale of existence, impacting everything around them.
Okay, so let's fast forward centuries now to the time of King David. Our sources show the giants, or their descendants at least, were still around, still a factor, especially in the wars against the Philistines.
Yes, the threat persisted. It wasn't just an early conquest issue.
1 Chronicles 20, verses 4 through 8, and also 2 Samuel 21. They're quite clear. They mention specific individuals. Sipple, a descendant of the giants. Then Lammi, identified as the brother of Goliath.
Goliath himself, of course, being the most famous example.
Right, and the source clarifies he was likely either a full giant or perhaps a second or third generation descendant of great stature, fitting that genetic model we talked about.
Precisely. These passages are compelling because they show the conflict continuing deep into the Israelite monarchy. It wasn't a problem that just vanished after Joshua. Kings like David and his warriors were still facing these formidable adversaries.
The source names others too.
Yes, besides Sipal and Lammi, there's Isbi Benobi, another descendant of the giants. The text mentions his spearhead weighed 300 shekels of bronze.
How much is that?
Roughly 3.4 kilograms, or about 7.5 pounds. Just the spearhead. That gives you an idea of the strength required to wield such a weapon effectively.
Incredible.
He also wore new armor, suggesting they were well-equipped, not just primitives, and the text explicitly states he intended to kill David. This highlights the very real personal threat these individuals posed, even to the king.
And they were concentrated in certain areas, like Gath?
Yes, the context is the constant warfare with the Philistines, and places like Gath seem to have been strongholds where these giant descendants were concentrated. That explains the recurring encounters in that region.
But it wasn't just about size and strength, was it? There's a really strange detail our source highlights from 1 Chronicles 20, verse 6.
The extra digits.
Yeah. There was a man of great stature who had 24 fingers, 6 on each hand and 6 on each foot. That's odd. What does the source make of that?
It suggests these abnormal genes, as the source puts it, might have led to other physical anomalies, not just height. It raises questions about the long-term viability, the stability of these genetic alterations.
Like a side effect.
Possibly. The source points to this, the polydactyly, as evidence of genetic deformities. It implies a deviation from typical human physiology that went beyond just stature. It's not just an isolated curiosity. It hints maybe at a broader pattern of instability in their genetic makeup.
So maybe the very thing that made them powerful also introduced flaws.
That's a plausible interpretation. It touches on the idea of genetic load. Were these defects a natural consequence of rapid, maybe unnatural growth, a biological cost for such immense power? Or perhaps a sign of a lineage struggling to maintain stability after its very foundation was altered?
Like the system was under stress.
Exactly. Trying to manage accelerated growth while maintaining normal development might lead to these kinds of anomalies. It suggests their unique genetic advantages might have come with significant biological drawbacks, a trade-off.
Which leads to the next point. Despite their fame, their strength, the source suggests their population started to dwindle.
Over time, they seem less prominent in the records.
And the source asks a direct biological question. We do not know the reproductive capacity of these new generations because, biologically speaking, a species can only perpetuate itself if its individuals are fertile.
A critical point. Biology 101, really.
It suggests there might have been a biological hurdle to their continued existence, despite how strong individual giants might have been.
Yes, this offers a potential explanation for their decline. The source directly questions their reproductive capacity, their fertility. The basic principle is undeniable. A species, or a distinct lineage like this, needs fertile individuals to continue. Without that, as the source implies, it's doomed to extinction.
So maybe they just couldn't reproduce effectively.
That's the strong implication. The observation that their population began to decrease over the centuries suggests infertility or reduced reproductive success could have been a major factor. Perhaps it was a direct defect linked to the growth genes, a trade-off like we just discussed.
Or other issues. Higher infant mortality.
Or perhaps higher rates of miscarriage or other genetic defects hindering viable offspring. We know the Anakim were still present in places like Gaza, Gath, Ashdod during Joshua's and David's time.
So they didn't vanish overnight.
No, but their numbers seem to be waning compared to the earlier accounts where they dominated whole regions. It presents this striking contrast. Immense individual power, yet maybe collective fragility in terms of long-term survival.
Which raises the question. Was it purely biological decline? Or was something else going on?
That's the lingering question. Was it a natural consequence of their unique, perhaps unstable genetics? Or, as the source hints, was there some other force, maybe even spiritual, contributing to their fading presence? The source explicitly states, perhaps infertility was a defect, making it a strong hypothesis based on the observed decline, a biological limit on an arguably unnatural existence.
Okay, just when you think we've traced the lineage, seen their peak, and discussed their decline, just when you think this is all ancient history tucked away in old texts, our source throws a massive curveball.
This is where it takes a very sharp turn, yes.
It makes this incredibly provocative claim. Do not think, however, that they cease to exist.
Oh.
Continues. Today, the fruit of demons with women still generates giants. And this is where this group, the Brotherhood as the source calls them, comes in. They apparently claim those ancient giants. They were just the fruit of experiments that were still in their early stages.
It completely reframes the narrative, doesn't it? This Brotherhood perspective takes us from ancient history right into the present day and in a really startling way.
So the original Nephilim were just prototypes.
That's the implication. Primordia's beginnings, early experiments. It suggests a continuous, evolving process, not a one-off historical event. The core claim is that this practice, demons interacting with humans to produce offspring, continues now.
Generating giants today.
Yes. Which immediately challenges our assumption that this whole phenomenon is confined to antiquity. It suggests an ongoing, active interference.
But wait, if there are giants today, where are they? We don't see 9-foot-tall people walking around routinely.
And that's the critical point, the really insidious twist in this modern interpretation. The source states, today their giants are people of common appearance.
Common appearance. So they look like us.
Exactly. They are not identifiable by physical stature alone. This is a radical departure from the traditional image. For anyone used to thinking of giants purely in terms of size, this redefinition is profound.
So if they're not physically giant, how are they giants? what defines them now, according to this brotherhood?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The definition has shifted entirely. It demands a completely new way of looking at things to even perceive them, let alone understand their purpose. It fundamentally alters the framework.
So if they look normal, where's the alteration? The source says the genetic alterations do exist, but they are inapparent, invisible.
Inapparent, that's the key word. Invisible to the naked eye, but apparently deeply impactful. This is where the experiment, as the Brotherhood sees it, has evolved, become more sophisticated.
Oh, so
Instead of visible size, the source suggests the devil, or whoever's behind this, has polished his experiments over generations. The targeting has shifted. Now it's focused on internal things. Metabolic processes, cerebral function, and the inclination of emotions.
Okay, break that down. Metabolic.
Cerebral.
Emotional inclination.
Right. So metabolic processes could mean anything from unusual energy levels, resilience, maybe rapid healing, or resistance to toxins. Things affecting the body's core functions, but subtly. Cerebral function points towards the brain. Maybe enhanced intelligence in specific areas, specific cognitive abilities, or even particular thought patterns, ways of processing information. Imagine an innate talent for strategy or manipulation or artistic genius.
And emotional inclination.
That suggests built-in predispositions, temperament, empathy levels, susceptibility to certain feelings, maybe an engineered capacity for extreme loyalty, or predisposition to rage, or perhaps that magnetic charisma the source links to hormones.
So subtle internal manipulations instead of just brute strength.
Exactly. A shift from overt physical power to a more refined internal toolkit. And crucially, the source states the purpose of these inapparent alterations to facilitate not only the installation of the Brotherhood's concepts, but also ease for great channeling of entities.
Okay, channeling entities, like spiritual possession or influence.
That seems to be the implication. It connects the genetic changes directly to spiritual and ideological susceptibility, creating individuals biologically predisposed to accept the Brotherhood's doctrines, and perhaps to act as conduits, willing or unwilling, for specific non-human intelligences or entities.
That's deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
Like targeted human design for spiritual purposes.
It paints a picture of individuals engineered from birth with specific internal landstops, shaping their thoughts, feelings, and even spiritual inclinations to serve an external agenda.
The source gives examples of these modern traits.
It does, painting a very specific, unsettling picture. Excess violence, potentially useful in certain roles, great attraction of the opposite sex, perhaps through those pheromones, useful for influence or creating certain social dynamics, and chillingly, specific contact points for specific demons.
Contact points, like built-in vulnerabilities.
Or perhaps predispositions, as if certain individuals are inherently more resonant or accessible to particular entities. It suggests a highly specialized, targeted form of manipulation. This isn't random. It's about crafting individuals with very specific tendencies and vulnerabilities.
To serve the Brotherhood's agenda.
Precisely. The source uses a really striking analogy to illustrate this specialization.
What's that?
It says, it is as if this giant were that type of tool that only serves for a certain type of screw, from a certain electronic device, from a certain company. The Bosch tool only works for the Bosch drill.
Wow. So these modern giants are like specialized instruments, designed for one specific task.
That's the idea. Outwardly ordinary, perhaps, but internally calibrated to be incredibly effective in certain niche roles within the Brotherhood's larger scheme, highly specialized tools.
And the ultimate goal.
According to the source, the goal is that a being is created with specific and unique characteristics who, when directed to a specific situation in life, a spiritual destiny given by the Brotherhood, only this individual will be able to perform it with the maximum chance of success and good performance.
Spiritual destiny.
Yeah.
Pre-programmed purpose.
Exactly. It describes a form of spiritual pre-programming, an individual's life path, their purpose, effectively preordained by these genetic and spiritual alterations from birth.
The implications for free will, for individual identity.
They're profound. It suggests a hidden layer to reality, where unseen forces might be meticulously guiding certain individuals, making them, in essence, living tools for a larger unseen power structure. It's a chilling thought. #outro.
Wow. Okay. From literal physical giants dominating ancient lands, beings inspiring terror and awe, to these inapparent subtle genetic modifications potentially shaping human behavior and destiny today.
Yeah.
This deep dive has certainly taken us on an incredible and, frankly, somewhat unnerving journey.
It really has. A journey across millennia.
We've looked at the biblical accounts, the Nephilim, the Anakim. We've considered the compelling mythological parallels across cultures. We've explored genetic theories, trying to explain their rise and fall.
The dilution, the potential infertility.
And then we landed on this chilling modern-day perspective from the Brotherhood. It completely forces you to rethink what the term giant could even mean. It's clearly moved far beyond just physical size, if this source is accurate.
Indeed. We've traced that historical lineage, looked at their physical attributes, their eventual decline in the records, and then confronted this Brotherhood assertion that the experiments never stopped. They just evolved, became more subtle, perhaps more potent, focusing on internal influences, genetic, emotional, spiritual predispositions.
That shift from outward dominance to internal manipulation, it's profound.
It really is. It encourages us, maybe forces us to look beyond the obvious, to consider how concepts of power and influence might change over time, from overt physical presence to a covert internal shaping of individuals and potentially societies.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this, trying to make sense of your own life in the world? It definitely prompts you to consider these potential hidden influences.
Absolutely.
Are there unseen forces, as this source suggests, directing individual paths, creating people perfectly suited, almost engineered for specific roles, like that specialized Bosch tool analogy?
It's a deeply unsettling thought.
It leaves you with a final question to chew on. What truly defines a giant in our modern age? If it's less about towering physical stature and more about unseen genetic predispositions, engineered talents, maybe even spiritual programming, how would we even know? How does that change how we see influence, power, and maybe even destiny itself?
It certainly encourages a deeper, perhaps more discerning look at the forces, both visible and invisible, that might be shaping our world. A lot to think about.